Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today, well, it seems like we're in a run of Ambassador reels. We've done a Blue Yonder, we've done a Big Game, and now we've got the Ambassador Royal Express. And, well, this one comes in from Fred. Fred tells me that the line guide doesn't work all the time, that it stops going back and forth. I'm just putting some pressure on there. One of the things I noticed is that the line guide is not running in the channel that it should be running in. So I don't know if that's having a problem on the reel or not, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take this reel apart. We're going to service it completely. We'll see how it's made. We'll reinstall that line guide in the right channel, and we'll see if we can notice anything while we're doing the service that might be causing the issue. And the last thing we're going to do is probably strap it on a rod, see if we can replicate the issue or see if the issue's gone away. So I start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts, and as I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you do like these types of videos, if you like to see how reels are made, maybe some of the problem diagnosis, and well, how they're put back together again and kept fishing for a long time to go, or if they're broken, how they're given a second chance. Well, that's kind of the purpose of this channel. And in addition, the primary purpose of the channel is to show you how to do it yourself so that you can keep your reels maintained and fishing for a long time to come. So if you like those, please subscribe. If you do subscribe, use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting the videos. Well, I've removed the nut and the little E-clip that sits on top, and now I can remove the handle. And I like to do a couple of things as I'm parting off the reel. One of them is to kind of clean up the dirt as I go along. There's a little bit of film on this handle blank here, and we can also take a drop or two of oil and put that into the sides, the opening above here for the handle knobs, and let that seep down. When I take the pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. I recommend that you have a system devised so that as you are removing your pieces and parts, you sort of know where you're going to put them. That's important rather than just laying them on your table. And it becomes very important later on. When you go to install the reel, you're going to want to know where those pieces and parts are. Well, the Royal Express is from that family of Ambassadors, and this one has a couple of differences. It'll have the completely extended thumb bar for free spool release, and it also, I believe, uses bushings, not bearings, in some of the reels. So if you're trying to compare that to a 501c or something, for example, that's usually the difference there. This reel is made in Sweden, so it's prior to Abu offshoring a lot of their reel manufacture to China. Alright, we're going to remove the side plate. You do that by taking the 3 screws off, and usually this piece can come out now. It does. And we've got a pretty dirty reel inside there. I don't think that would be contributing to a line guide failure. But let's pull the spool, and I want to also take off this side plate because I want to check to make sure that the idler gear, the plastic gear, has all of its teeth and that they're not worn. One of the common failures with one of these line guides sticking is that the drive on the spool or the drive on the idler gear that drives the worm gear is broken. If it's the spool, you get an intermittent failure. If it's a tooth missing between where the spool drives the idler gear and where the idler gear sits, it either causes a hesitation or fails completely. Okay, we have the part off now. This is your anti-reverse. We'll set that aside for a moment. There's 2 spacers that go in the reel. You see one of them here, and opposite that'll be the other one. Just taking an orientation here. Those are going to hold on where the piece goes for that bridge, the click mechanism. They go on the top. All right. There's a little bit of grease and debris on here, so we're going to just flood that, let the penetrating oil sit, and now I'm examining the teeth on that idler gear, starting with the outside first and then looking internally. And you want to make sure that these are clear and rigid, so check between the teeth first. Sometimes it's a little hard to see. Seems like we're okay. Just picking out some of the what might be dirt, and then check the profile this way. Make sure all those teeth are sharp. And what I'm seeing is a little bit of wear. Just to make sure that. So we have some wear. Shouldn't be that much that would stop the line guide from driving, but there is just 2 teeth in a row here that look like there's a little bit of wear. We'll take a look. I'm going to mop this up, clean out that little bit of old grease in there. That penetrating oil has loosened that up, so we can get rid of that. And we can go ahead and put this back on. Okay, we cleaned up the side plate. While we're at it, we want to get this line guide back in its place. So to do that, you want to pull this little clip off here. That should enable you to pull out and tuck in the line guide. You then need to center the line guide piece back. Reset that clip. Clip gets reset by turning it the fork side up, finding the groove in the worm gear, and then moving it across. We're going to move that to one side so we can check the pawl. To do that, we're going to remove the cap. And then generally, if you just tap down, that pawl will come out. And we just want to check. You want to make sure that the shoulders on the pawl are okay. And check the 2 prongs. They need to be equal. And they look to be equal. Let's put that back in. Once you put it back in, hold pressure on the pawl and turn your line guide or your worm gear until you feel that that has set in. And that's the proper set. There should just be a little bit of a topping off of that pawl in that cavity. You can put a drop of oil in there. Drop of oil onto the worm gear. We'll check that in a moment. And then let's just put that cap back on. While I'm putting the cap back on, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, just leave them in the question and comment section. I will try to answer that for you. One of the things I want to do now is I want to turn the line guide, and I'm checking the teeth to see if there's any worn spots there. This one seems to be working just fine. You can see there's no stress at all when this one's rolling along. All right, let's put the side plate back on. I think we've done what we can there. I'm going to take the side plate and put that on both sides of the posts there. And we have those 2 little spacers. Go to my parts tray for that. And then we want to put our side plate on. Most of the time, I think if you put this side plate lever down, then you want to center the pieces on the reel. And you probably may need to just move that a little bit up. And you should have a nice tight seam across there. Go to your parts tray then and get your 3 screws. I'm going to hold pressure on there while I put the first one in. And then I don't need to worry so much about clamping it down from there. Well, that's seems to be everything's working there. What did we do? We took the side plate off. We checked the worm gear. We checked the idler gear. We took off the pole, checked that, oiled the pieces. I haven't seen anything that was a mechanical reason right now other than that the line guide was not in the track, and we showed you how to reset that. Okay, there's one more piece here. And we'll service the spool, and then we'll service the body of the reel. So a lot of the differences in the Ambassadors is generally the setup of the gear side, different versions, and the pricing differences usually have to do more with the number of ball bearings and the like in a reel than the reel themselves. Okay, we have this, you can pull that out. That's your axle shaft. We have a lot of braid on here. I tested earlier to see if there was any braid slip going on. We're okay. But one of the things that I don't like is trying to put the braided line back on the spool into the cavity. I usually wind up trapping the braid. So one of the things I found that's pretty effective is putting a rubber band on there. I guess that also lets the folks know that I have taken this apart, because the only way to get that rubber band on there is to take the spool out. I've just oiled the bearing inside the spool. This just simply pulls out. I want to clean the axle shaft by coating of grease onto the axle shaft. Then we can put the axle shaft back in. And you'll notice we have the two brakes on here. I like to pull those brakes in when it's time to reassemble. I also want to oil the bearing on this side. We can set that in place then. We can put a little bit of grease onto the back end. We put grease into the cavity where that's going to seat on the other side, but if you want, you can put some grease in there. Okay. All right, we're set on that then. We'll just put that assembly off to the side. We'll come over to the gear side plate. Again, everything that has to do with the line guide was already addressed here, because the line guide drives off the spool. You saw where the back end of that spool, that little piece that we removed to oil the bearing, that's going to drive the line guide through that idler gear. All right, we're just going to go and try and take this out of the other side. Now we'll see what we have over here on this one. And this is a slightly different approach to the insides of a Ambassador. As I mentioned, there are several different configurations. This one's rather unique. I can only find it on this reel and maybe another one or two. I am noticing very quickly that we do not have an instant anti-reverse on this one, and we also have this one hasn't been serviced in a while. All right, I just used the scrubby pad with a little bit of rod and reel cleaner on there to get rid of the film on the side of this one. And we'll show you how to service this side. One of the things you want to note right away is that you have a spring in this yoke, so pull that whole yoke assembly up. If that spring comes off, you want to make sure that you know where it is. I think we can take it off this way. Notice that there is a little copper washer on the bottom of that stem. Don't lose that. This is your anti-reverse dog. It has a finger joint on both sides. It's also got a lot of grease on there, so let's take our towel and clean that off. I'll just put that in the tray for a moment. Push the assembly through so we can check our drag washers and clean up this top metal. There's a couple of little tension washers in here. There's two drag washers, one on each side. And generally, I don't see many of these drag washers wear out. Most of the time, these are kind of destined for light duty, and these are fine. What I like to do with the drag washers is put a little bit of grease on them. I use, in this case, I'm using Cal's Universal fishing reel and drag grease. If you don't have it, just use regular fishing reel grease. I put a little bit on there, get it on my glove, use my glove as a tool to wipe it down. And we can take that and put that right back on now. Check your main gear as you do that. You want to make sure that it's clean. This one is totally devoid of any grease. Check the orientation of the teeth. Make sure that those teeth are all uniform and that you don't notice any banged up pieces or the like. Okay. Got one more piece to clean up. That's this little cap washer. It's got a lot of old grease sitting on there. Most of the time you can wipe these off with paper towel or something. If you find that you can't, use a penetrating oil or something as a solvent. Okay, cap goes on. Then we have a tension washer. We have 2 flat washers. And we have the plastic washer. The last thing we want to put back on this reel is the anti-reverse dog. Anti-reverse dog, you split the fingers on the dog. And that's how it will set. Okay, we can remove the yoke now. The yoke has your pinion gear in it. And this one's kind of easy to figure out what's front and back on it because that spring is there. Sometimes they're a little bit more difficult. Check the teeth. Make sure all the teeth here are the same. The slotted side faces in. This would be the inside. And you clip it into that yoke. And we're going to set that aside for a moment. Last thing we want to do then is just clean up this truck mechanism here. There's a little bit of old grease on that. Now I'll use my penetrating oil and that cotton swab. That'll dissolve this stuff quickly. And you can push this down, lock it, and get the balance of the dirt and greases off there. You don't need to remove this assembly as part of the service as long as you can clean underneath it. And we can do that. Okay, I'll just use the dry side of that swab just to get whatever remaining greases are off. Okay, you can just move this back up manually. That'll reset that. And we're in pretty good position with that. Let's take our yoke assembly then, put that back in. Goes over the 2 posts. Now we can take our gear side assembly and the anti-reverse dog. You want to mesh the gear with the pinion gear, and you need to align the anti-reverse dog so that it fits over the stud like this. If you had taken this assembly off and you were curious or lost track of where the pieces and parts went, notice how the spring is attached here and how that spring is attached over here. We're in good position. We're going to take our oiler then, get some oil onto that jack assembly, and we're ready to close this reel up after we take a look on the inside. There's just a little bit of dirt in here. We'll just mop that up. Now we can take our assembly, slide it over the top, align the 2 case holes, go to our parts tray and get those 2 screws. So I haven't seen any indication that this is a mechanical issue with that line guide. I'm going to think maybe the issue is just about the line guide not being in the slot and having it hang possibly when it came to turn and gets pulled out by the line it's trying to guide. As I mentioned, there's line on here, so what I may do is I may just put this on a pole, put a weight on it, and see if I experience the same problems. Kind of road test it. Would be a good idea. So we've got a 2-ball bearing reel. They're on both sides of the spool. That should make the spool turn nice and easy. And overall, pretty nice reel. Let's go ahead and put the star adjuster back on. After the star adjuster, we have this little tension spring. Once the tension spring is on, you can put the handle on. Once the handle is on, you can reinstall that E-clip. Those of you that may have noticed maybe I went a little too fast at the beginning of this, the E-clip rides in a slot. Most of the time you can pull that in by finger strength. That's how it sits on the top. If you're taking the reel apart, it's the reverse. You just want to pull that out. I like to start the handle nut by hand, because there's always a chance that you can cross strip this. I've seen too many reels come in with either a stripped nut or a stripped post, and in that case there's nothing you can do about that short of replacing the piece. Okay, we should be able to get this on. If you align your flat spot on your handle nut with this on a perpendicular basis, usually this will fit right on. Tighten that up. Take the main reel, put a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft. That'll enable it to flow freely through the pinion gear. You want to pull up on your free spool release, and when this goes in, you're going to be looking for this little hole right here. That is where the trip lever is going to go. So you need to get that meshed in with that. And this is the little point that will go in that hole. Make sure when you attach it that it has a nice tight seam all the way around, just like we did on the other side. And finger tighten the outside screws. Here's 3 of them. Make sure that they're all started before you go and tighten them all down. Once you do that, another quarter turn will seal it. Well, we've taken this whole reel apart. We've explained a little bit about the lever wind system. Now's the time to give it a test. Let's give it a drive. It's driving nice and easy, that's for sure. I'm not noticing any skips, hops, or otherwise with that line guide. It's now riding in the track. You can adjust your spool tension here. Let's give it a spin. It spins nicely for a casting reel. Clips back into shape. So I think we've got the piece, and I'm going to attribute it to being out of that piece. But again, because this was an issue, I will put that onto a rod, and I will we'll give it a cast, and we'll see if it hangs up as was described by Fred. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, again, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, you'll get those notifications that'll let you know when I'm posting. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do to keep us safe. I do appreciate your dedication to task and your career choice. To everyone, please enjoy the art of reel repair. Make sure your tackle's ready to go. Tune them up. If you notice a problem, get right on it. Don't try to fish through it. And prompt service of that will keep that reel running. And chances are it'll avoid a catastrophe with other broken pieces and parts. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing you a great day.